just quickly fix the microphone as well, because I noticed that it was not working on my recording. Dude, I really hate Windows. It's giving me hard times. All right, just said earlier prior to this town hall that I didn't boot it up my Windows PC, and now I was just taking a look on OBS, and oh my goodness, it's so messy. Every time something is wrong with Windows, and yeah, I just use it for the town halls because I do have these settings, the scene and the profile set up in this OBS, and there's a particular feature that I'm using that I cannot easily port over to Linux because it's a virtual thingy on Windows that you can use there, and a friend of mine who sadly no longer seems to be active here on this Discord set up for me. So yeah, that's the reason why I did come back to Windows, but all my other machines are Linux, and I should probably just do the move entirely over to Linux. But anyway, today's town hall shall be a little bit about upcoming things, upcoming changes, and why the ESP miner, your Bitaxe firmware, is currently not seeing a release update, and when potentially the next release will be coming out, which will be hopefully not that long in the future, hopefully in the next couple of days or in 1 or 2 weeks. There were a couple of things in consideration for moving into the firmware, for upgrading particular things, especially when it comes to a couple of upgrades and just in general improvements when it comes to the UI. We do have currently 2 different beta versions available, the version 2.10.0 beta 1 and the beta version 2, which is quite nice. On beta 1 were plenty of changes, as with the last release, plenty of changes when it comes to the components, how we do move all the things in the UI to just improve the user experience in general, which is a good thing, and I really love it. I really need to admire like Doug Eggs, who has come out of nowhere and is now contributing so much to this repository. It's so fantastic having him here, and all the other ones that are all the time contributing to it. That's so phenomenal. A funny thing there is, that's how this goes. Like, out of nowhere, people are stepping in and helping you out with this because they think like the mission that you do have is the right thing to do. And that's also what I do believe. What we do here at OSMU is like the right thing. We provide all these open source thingies that everybody can use, can modify, and do whatever they want with it. It's just fantastic. And seeing it spreading up all around the world, like, you go at some random place at some random Bitcoin conference. Okay, maybe that's not too random going to a Bitcoin conference, but like being there and yeah, just talking to people who know a little bit about Bitcoin in general, and then out of a sudden, well, they know about Bitaxe, which is fantastic. Like, how crazy is that? It is really crazy. And by the way, speaking about events, an upcoming event later this year in Germany will be the so-called Bitcoin Forum, which is basically a huge arena, if I'm not mistaken, in a city called Ingolstadt, which is near Munich. That's a southern part of Germany. I'll be attending there, and I'll do some Bitaxe workshops, obviously, like trying my best and teaching the people how to use a hot air gun or a solder iron, and how you could potentially fix your Bitaxe, or how you can potentially solder yourself one. And maybe I get the interest of the people, and some of them say, well, I'm more interested in that. I want to learn a little bit more about that. And then I tell them, well, there are YouTube videos. There are like-minded people like Decentralized Mind, who's doing like crazy live streams of just soldering everything. And lately, particularly everything that PMax is building, like the QX, the Nerd QX, the Plus, the Plus Plus. Now he's going on to the Odd Show. I'm not sure if he has already done the Nerd Hakes. Would be interesting to see if he has done that, or if anybody of you in the audience does know that. But it's crazy what this dude is doing, like recording everything and taking his time and making sure everything works. That's fantastic to see. Especially the knowledge base that you build with that is just fantastic. So anyway, let's go back to a couple of these changes that we do have that are upcoming with the next release, and what will potentially also go in the next release. Betas, it's always good to talk about how do we decide what will be a beta version and what will be in the release. Yeah, nerdhakes and octakes, that's Puller's work. Yeah, PMax, thanks for making sure that this is here in the context. That's correct. That's his work, but I just wanted to point out that this decentralized mind dude is just making videos about all these crazy projects, and I love to see that. Thanks for sharing that, man. And don't be shy. Like, your projects are also fantastic. I think one of the next things that should be done would be a revision of the Pi eggs of the original one to making this Pi head available for the BM1370. Shouldn't be that hard, but just pointing out some things here. If you ever feel a little bit about you need some new work. Well, all right. I pointed out a little bit that obviously the UI will be changing in the next release. Not that much in particular. I mean, if you take a look on GitHub, you can already take a look on the beta releases and test them out for yourself. So all you need to do is come over to the ESP-minor repository, and then you click on the releases, and in there you will find usual releases. The version 2.9.0 is currently the latest release. And then we do have 2 beta versions with upcoming changes that are currently being tested. And beta versions, they stay in this repository until the next release is out. Then I do delete all of these beta versions just to keep the branch clean and everything else. And yeah, like the UI itself, if you want to test the new and upcoming changes out yourself, just go over, on the release page. And if you click on the assets of the particular release that you want to take a look on, you can find yourself the esp-minor.bin file and the www.bin file. You can click on them, download them, and then just upload them to your Bitaxe. Or if you want to use the USB method and doing a little bit hacky stuff about the CLI, you can use the Bitaxe tool created by Johnny and just flash it with a factory file so that it is a fresh and clean installation. That's also possible for almost every version. No, for all the versions that we do have. 6.1, 6.2, and all the other ones that are out there. An interesting thing here to know is that a couple of things are changing and moving into a direction. One of the things that will probably cause a lot of trouble or will get a lot of people into some headaches will be that's for the future, though. It will not be in the next upcoming release, but a topic that we usually speak not that much about, which is the Swarm feature. Last year we had a huge discussion about what to do with Swarm because Swarm was broken, and back then I was not really used to how Swarm was working because I was entirely working on different parts of XOS and trying myself to learn more about this because I was not that deep into programming anyway back then in the early days. And we had the discussion about like, well, should we not just entirely remove the Swarm feature? But too many people reached out and said like, well, you shouldn't remove it. There's no alternative. And we spoke about this in the last town hall. We are currently creating an alternative to Swarm to make sure that we don't need it on the device itself. So this is not in the next release. It will not be in the next 1 or 2 releases probably, but someday in the future we might actually pull out Swarm because we're working on a project that will replace it, that will give you way more options, that will be also way more secure. The biggest issue with Swarm that we currently have is when you are in a network and you want to reach out to other devices, you want to do this over a particular method. You need to enable or disable certain features, which is kind of interesting because for Swarm, you need to disable the cores, which is a cross-origin response thingy, some security stuff. I don't want to go too deep into that. But basically what this does, this feature, it should usually tell the device, well, that's not a good source to take actions from or take any information from. I don't want to do that. And in order to make sure that Swarm is working, we need to disable this feature. Then we had a couple of other security issues that would allow harmful websites to change settings on their Bitaxe. That has been luckily really quickly fixed, but it was a bug out there that was entirely created just by the fact that we did allow these kind of issues. So reason being is now that we do face it, that Swarm is an absolutely nice thing. You can control all of your devices at one place. We also do admire that it might not be the best case to still have this running on your Bitaxe. So that's the reason why Ben originally set up a program called Hash Command. There is from time to time a little bit development happening on that. Currently it's in a work in progress state, heavily work in progress. But the idea here is that we do have a tool, maybe a phone app. The idea is to have it like cross-platform, that you can use it everywhere, like on your phone, on your PC, but a tool that you use where you can see your entire fleet, where you can control them and so on, and then make sure that this device or this thing actually controls all of your devices, instead of having cores disabled on every single Bitaxe, which is not a good practice when it comes to embedded systems or in general running your systems on a network. So yeah, until this tool is ready and is deployable and we have tested it for weeks and weeks and people are happy with it, we're not going to remove Swarm. So I just needed to make sure that I do explain everything that is going into consideration here. Swarm is not going to be replaced or removed in the near future, but yeah, it's definitely in consideration that we will make sure that the Bitaxe itself will be the best it can and sticks to what it can do the best, which is hashing. Also, fun fact for those of you who don't know that, like the priority of your Bitaxe is always to mining. If your web server fails, it doesn't care, it still keeps mining. If anything else fails, as long as it is not the Wi-Fi connection or the mining thingy, it keeps hashing. Which is quite funny, and sometimes I need to remind people about that. Even though things are not looking good, your device might still hashing. And by the way, good to see you, Decentralized Mind. I just spoke about you a couple seconds ago, and I said that I do love all the videos that you do and your live streams. While you're here, I need to ask you, have you already done a stream about the nerd Hakes? Because I've seen that you did the odd show. Now I'm interested if you also did the Hakes. That would be cool to see as well. Not yet. Great. So here's your mission. Please do that. Awesome. It's really good to have you here, man. Okay, where were we? We were talking a little bit about upcoming changes and how you can actually test them out by using something like the beta versions. For everybody of you who wants to get a little bit more in touch and wants to give some feedback, we do have something that is called Apply for Role, which is a channel that you do see on the very left, on the very top of this Discord server, where you can apply for the role of becoming a firmware tester. There's nothing fancy about it. You can still, you can always test the beta versions or any other firmware that we do have, but applying for the role of a firmware tester opens you to the firmware testing channel, which is a specific channel where people give us responses about the changes that we did. Let's say, for example, we changed something on how the hashing works. Now we send out this beta version and we will notify all these firmware testers, and they hopefully will test it and give us some feedback. STS, one of our moderators here on this Discord, is doing this with every single change that we do have. He's relentless on doing that. It's fantastic to see that. And a couple of other people are also making sure they do test all the stuff that we put out there, which is good to see. So yeah, definitely, if you guys are interested in that, you can apply for that. And the only benefit of that is you can tell us what we did wrong and how stupid we were with implementing a couple of changes. Speaking about implementing a couple of changes, if you guys are into any sort of like overclocking, changing frequencies whatsoever, there is a surprising new feature that, or improvement, it's not a feature, it's improvement, aka maybe a feature. It's definitely not a bug, that's for sure. That is upcoming in the next release, which is a improvement when it comes to the PLL settings. And PMAX, that probably might also be something that you want to take a look on, because that is definitely, I'm not sure if you have already done something similar to the Node X series, but it's definitely worth taking a look on. So Mutatrum was working relentless over a couple of weeks on improving the PLL calculation for the BM1366, the 68 and the 70. So what this allows you now is it allows you to be it allows you to do certain things that you were not able before. Let's say, for example, you now go to your Bitaxe running at the version 2.9.0 and you enable the overclock settings, because then you can set whatever settings you want into the frequency and into the voltage. If there is some mismatch between the voltage and the frequency, or something is not quite working on the calculation in the back end, then the Bitaxe will not apply these settings. It will try to, but it will not get there. So therefore it will not really apply the changed frequency. And currently the changed frequency needed to be a divider of 6.25, which was a thing we did because that's all we had from the Bitmain chips and what we could read out from them. But Mutacho was working on an improvement on that. So now what you can do is, if you test the beta version 2 of the upcoming release, the version 2.10.0, you can actually put in whatever number you will, or whatever you can think of, let's say 527.725 megahertz, you can put that in and it will try its best to get as close as possible to this setting. If it can't find this setting, it will go to the nearest closest one that it can find. So it gives you a better option of changing and modifying the frequency on your chip itself, which is interesting. There's still a lot of testing going on that. We currently have only tested this on the Ultra, the Super, and the Gamma. So this will also only work on the Ultra, Super, and Gamma. It will not work on the Bitaxe Max. We don't really... We try to don't put too many new features into the Max. And at some point we entirely probably will ditch the Max itself. Because it's such an old chip, and it's a nice thing to have. We had multiple discussions about just leaving the Bitaxe Hex alone, but yeah, currently it's still in there, and sometimes it creates issues because you try to implement stuff and then it does not work because the Bitaxe Max code doesn't allow to work the particular way you want it to be. So that's the reason why we're always talking about, like, well, let's just ditch the Bitaxe Max. We don't want to have it in here. But yeah, well, that is, it's still in there. It's still working. It's still getting updates. And I do have one. It's not running. It's only running when I do testing on it. So maybe 2 or 3 days per week when I do a couple of testings on it. But apart from that, it's not really running. But I keep it. And I will hopefully never ditch it, because this was my very, very first Bitaxe that I ever had, and that was truly an amazing opportunity for me. But apart from that, so you will get a new improvement or feature, however you want to call this. It's an improvement when it comes to the PLL calculation for these ASIC chips, which is fantastic to see. Also, I've worked on a couple of changes and improvements and yeah, in general new features for the upcoming Bitaxe GT, the Gamma Turbo, which will have 2 BM1370 chips on it. And yeah, I just enabled that you can read out both of the temperatures, and that it will be displayed on the XOS, that you see the different temperatures. Like for example, currently one of these chips does have 60 degrees and the other one has 62 degrees. So yeah, everything's fine, but I'm running mine at like 700 megahertz, so they better get a little bit toasty. Apart from that, what do we have? Another cool thing that Mutacho was also working on is allowing a little bit more multiple or a little bit more WebSocket connections. Prior to the version 2.10, if you try to actually open up multiple logs, like opening the same IP address of your Bitaxe over and over, and then trying to read all the logs, it would crash really soon. And now we handled the multiple WebSockets in a different way, and I think you can now open up to 10 tabs of the logs, and we'll try to make sure to send out the logs to them. It's not in an asynchronous way currently. This probably needs to be done in the future, but for that a couple other pieces and parts need to be moved out of it. Yeah, and Hexfox just said, yeah, it's 10 connections, not 20, 10. Okay. Also, a little bit of like improvements in general when it comes to what you can see, what kind of features do you see. We have like this section in the pool where you can set the difficulty, and plenty of people, especially on Reddit, quick excursus to Reddit. Reddit is interesting, but people don't read what on Reddit is. They just consume it at a certain level, and then they post, which is interesting. So, over the course of the last 4 weeks, daily was I reading new posts in the Bitaxe subreddit. What is this new dot on my screen? Is my Bitaxe broken? Why is there a dot appearing from time to time? And people are always nicely responding to that, which is nice to see, but it clearly shows that people are not reading what's going on Reddit. They're just consuming it, and yeah, well, they just try their best at posting the same questions over and over again. So if you do see a dot on your screen, that means that your Bitaxe does have found a share, or at least sent over a share that got acknowledged as valid as far as it is possible on the Bitaxe itself. ScrambleX is writing in the chat, is there a way to contribute to the GT? So currently, for the information about the GT, we are currently sitting at the 3rd revision of it, which means the versioning of the Bitaxe will be the 800 series. The Bitaxe GT does have currently the tag 800XXX, and 1X is per revision of testing. So the first X would be the first revision, 2 X's would mean like 2nd revision, and currently we are on the 3rd revision. I don't think there will be a 4th revision. The Bitaxe GT XXX is working. I do have it running on my desk here because I'm testing and trying new stuff here all day long, and I'm working on the BAP particularly for the Bitaxe GT. Because I do have a couple of other projects that are upcoming with that. So as soon as the Bitaxe GT is released, and I do hope that we will release that in the next couple of weeks. I don't know. I'll probably have a chat with Scott as soon as he comes back, and with Ben as well, because Scott is currently on a conference. But when he comes back, I'll ask him like, well, what's the current status? But as far as I can see from the repo itself, there are no changes or anything else going into it right now. I don't know if he had a couple of changes done by himself, because he does have a couple of development boards on his own at home. So you never know if he tried something else and now it's working better or whatever. But the 800XXX version, if you want to try that out, give it a go. But be assured it is still a testing unit. We tried to make it that way because I think it was last year, the first time that this happened, where like 2 manufacturers, I don't want to say their names, but 2 manufacturers were trying to create the Gamma. And they quickly figured, well, the board that we have released is not working. And then Scott introduced these X markings to show that this is not a final release, but a testing unit. And then these manufacturers stopped producing testing units, which was a funny thing to see, because like they were trying to blame us a little bit. Well, it's not working. Yeah, man, it's a testing unit. We just tried it, but it's not working. But ScrambleX, to answer your question, is there any way to contribute to the GT? Yeah, if you want to take a look on the schematics, if you're familiar with KeyCard or with other CAD software out there, and you want to take a look on the PCB itself, and you find something that you say, well, it would be nice to change that, or this should be changed because you know X and this currently is not the right thing, please do so. Please open up an issue or a pull request and change these things if you find anything on there. I myself, I'm not good with hardware. I tried a couple of things, and I'm getting into that. I'm consuming probably daily at least 30 minutes of KeyCard videos, because I'm trying to be better in that. It's a tedious process, and I definitely want to learn so many things. Like there are some points where you're just out of your mind and you don't know anything, so you need to consume YouTube videos about how to do X or whatever. Or you just take a look on all the repos from PMax and you enjoy yourself seeing German over engineering, which is the greatest thing on this planet Earth. Just need to say that. I think I hopefully that answers the question. What else do we have? I was speaking about showing and hiding certain things on the web UI. And then we made this X course over to Reddit, and then we ended up somewhere else, and now we're back again to this thing prior to Reddit. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. So what we noticed is a couple of people are confused by having the option of setting a stratum difficulty. And this was also particularly happening on Reddit. I tried to keep my eyes out on Reddit and moderating it as good as possible. But people are really furious about, like, what is it? Do I need to change it? And one particular post, that was so weird. No, not really. It was stupid. It was a post from someone who was claiming that by changing his pool difficulty or his stratum difficulty, that he does have higher odds of finding a block. And he was trying to sell this off on Reddit on our X and telling the people that they should increase their stratum difficulty to make sure their odds of finding a block are way higher compared to everybody else. And he was doing some crazy math, which was incorrect. It was an interesting thing to read that. Don't get me wrong. It's it's like, all right, cool, you did all this work, but it's nonsense. So if you do see this feature in XOS, which allows you to set the stratum difficulty, this is basically one toggle that you can set, which tells your Bitaxe, hey, have you found a nonce? Yes, I'm your Bitaxe. I have found a nonce. What is the number or the difficulty height of your nonce? Well, it's 800. And now you set the nonce difficulty minimum to 1000, then your Bitaxe will tell you, well, fuck off. I don't want to see anything below 1000. I want to see everything that is upwards of 1000 or equal to 1000. Then I would only consider this nonce something valuable and send it out to the desired pool that I'm connected to. That is what stratum difficulty basically gives you on your Bitaxe. You can set what is the minimum number that your ASIC chip needs to produce in order to send out a share to the pool. Some of these pools out there, they do have the stratum v1 message, which is the set difficulty message. It's a ID in this string that is been transmitted between the pool and your device. And in this string there is like information, what is the min difficulty or what is the suggested difficulty, etc., etc. This changes on some pools, and on other pools this keeps being the same. Usually that shouldn't matter to you, but some pools have different ways of implementing that, so it could be not working. If you do find yourself connected to a pool and you set, let's say, for example, the stratum minimum difficulty to 10,000, it could be that this pool is not accepting that. There is no default. Stratum v1 is all over the place. Everybody is doing his own implementation, accepting or implementing other features, and there's no standard. That's the thing with stratum v1, that everybody could do whatever they want with it. So there are some pools, they need to have a particular order of which part of the message is sent at which particular place on this message. Let's say one is sending the ID first, then the mining suggested difficulty, then the mining chunk. But other pools, they want to see the chunk first and then the suggested difficulty later. So it's really weird. Anyway, we're getting out of the topic a little bit here, but what I wanted to tell you is you can set up the difficulty on your Bitaxe, and depending on that, it takes longer or lesser, longer, whatever. It doesn't change anything on your mining behavior. It keeps the same. The only thing it changes is that your Bitaxe does not do any communication to the pool if the minimum difficulty has not been achieved. So let's say you set it to 117T to get as close as possible to the pool, to the network difficulty, then, well, your Bitaxe will probably never send any single share over to the pool, and it will never be acknowledged by your pool, because getting to that kind of difficulty is really high. That's the reason why we not only see new blocks from solo miners that rarely, but yeah. So you could technically do that. I would not recommend it. But getting back to the point of why I'm explaining you all these things here is we have figured out that plenty of people are confused by these settings. There are also a couple other settings, and in order to improve the easiness and I talked about this from time to time, making sure this device is as granny proof as possible. We will hide these features under a advanced option thingy. So only if you feel advanced, or being an advanced user, I always try to pronounce it in that particular way because it's a little bit ludicrous. Anyway, then you can show yourself these settings, and there are also small icons next to it where you can hover over and it will tell you, well, if you do set this, it will do that. So yeah, we just try to be as nice as possible as the user, especially for newcomers to this. So there's that, and you need to make sure that people don't get confused just because they have too many options. So we will hide a couple of certain features, but in overall there are improvements to the UI with other things as well. And the workflow itself has also been improved. So this is more for the dev backend thingy for us developers, that we do have a couple of changes when it comes to how do we build everything, how do we use dev containers and so on, which is nice for us because then we can easier deploy and build these firmwares locally to test them and then send them out to our Bitaxes and test them there and so on. So yeah, most of the stuff that's currently in this beta version is the UI, a couple upgrades to certain parts. We also do have improvement when it comes to Swarm, when it comes to buffer overflows, when it comes to the Wi-Fi configuration and so on and so on. So plenty new improvements and a couple of bug fixes here and there. So that's really great to see. One particular thing that is upcoming that I was now working, I think, 4 months on is the BAP. It's currently being reviewed. Yesterday I finished up the last lines of code. Still need to take a second look on it if it is actually in that way that I want it to be. The BAP is basically the Bitaxe accessory port, which you do have these ports on the top of your PCB. And these ports contain currently, if you take a look on the Bitaxe Gamma, a couple of things. Like there are 6 ports, 2, 4, 6, yeah. 6 ports. One is for 5 volt, the other one is for ground, and then you have like 4 communication ports. And you get it. You can put some communication in there. And I was writing a protocol on this for the past months. And now I had 2 weeks vacation, so I finally had time to work on that and finalize it. So I did it. Hopefully this will be reviewed and then implemented in the next couple of days, or maybe 1 or 2 weeks. It's a lot of code that I wrote there. It's a lot of stuff that got into that. And I also need to make sure that I do publish the client version of it. Basically, what this does, it allows everybody to create tools, features, add-ons, whatever you name it, to your Bitaxe. So let's say, for example, you have some sort of, I don't know, you're some crazy LED dude and you want to see your Bitaxe shine. You can grab information about that from this port and you can just light up some LEDs in your home. Would be cool to see an entire home just flashing orange every time your Bitaxe is sending a share. So if anybody of you want to do that, please do it. I want to see that. Christmas decoration for sure. Every time a single share. And then please set down the stratum difficulty to something like 10. So your house is going crazy. Oh my goodness. Oh, I have something in mind now. It would be so rad. Anyway, so yeah, the Bitaxe accessory port is coming. I have high hopes that I will not release the version 2.10.0 without it. I want to put it in there because the BAP port, that took months of work and we need to implement it. The cool thing about it is you can not only connect to it and like read out stuff, but you can fully control your Bitaxe. You can set you can set everything that you want. Currently, I only implemented that you can set the Wi-Fi SSID and the password. I have not said that you can change the Bitcoin address, but it's just 2 lines of code that I need to add, and then you could technically over this port also change the Bitcoin address as well. But yeah, you can technically fully control your Bitaxe. I do have a client which is another ESP32 that I do have connected with some wires to another Bitaxe, and I can type in some stuff in there, and then this client will send over a request to the host, which is the Bitaxe itself, and then the host itself is like, well, what did you send me there? And on my client I can tell it, change fan speed to 10%. And the host receives that message, reviews it, makes sure that the checksum of it is correct, and if everything is all right, then says, all right, cool, I'm gonna change my fan speed to 10%. Yeah, cool. So yeah, it's another way of controlling your Bitaxe. Implementing that and making sure this is out is another way of making sure we utilize this device as much as possible and giving out the user all the possibilities they want to have. Let's say, for example, you do use the Bitaxe RAW firmware, which is currently written in Rust, but we could technically also provide a Bitaxe RAW firmware written in C, or just implement the BAP protocol over to Rust as well. And then you do have, like, let's say, I don't know, 20 Bitaxe. You don't run an HTTP server or anything else. There's no web UI, there's no screen. It is just hashing, it's just connecting to Wi-Fi, and it's just making sure to send over some shares to your desired pool. But then to every single one, you do have these cables connected, and you can still control them. You can have like a big screen, and you can show the entire hash rate of your fleet that you do have, and you don't need to use the Wi-Fi for that. You can do this all by wire at home. I think that's cool. I'm too nerdy to acknowledge that this is not cool, so I think that's cool. Yeah, that's the BAP. And let me also take a look in the curl milestones, because for upcoming releases I'm putting up milestones as well. Yeah, the BAP is the next thing that needs to come in there. Another thing that also needs to go into the version 2.10.0 is the Extranons 2 variable length. A couple of pools use variable lengths in the Extranons 2, which is an interesting fact. I didn't know that, but Scott put up a PR for that to make sure that we can work with these Extranons 2 lengths as well, which has currently been reviewed. For most of you, this doesn't really matter, but what should be able is giving you the option to connect to more pools, making your device more likely to function with all sorts of pools out there. Another thing that we did in one of the prior versions was the allowance of connecting to pools like NiceHash, Mining Rig Rentals, and so on, which are rental services. Like, you send over your hash rate, and whenever someone rents you out, I don't want to make some advertisement for that, I just want to explain you what these are. When someone rents your hash rate, your hashes will be redirected in a certain other pool with a certain different setting, and therefore our firmware needed to be adapted. Initially, we never wanted to implement that because, I don't know, we never rented it out, but another developer stepped out and did it. I'm not sure if Mutachum was who did it or if Johnny was that. I don't know. I don't know it out of my head, so if you do know it out of your head, I'm sorry. Yeah, but well, you currently, I don't know a single pool that you cannot connect to. I think we can currently connect to every single pool that is out there. That's to my knowledge, but I need to say, at least I've only tested like 15-20 pools, not that much. There are probably more than just 15 pools out there. So yeah, and most of the development, to be fair, also happens on public pool, because it's the pool that we do advertise with being truly open source and deployable at home in just a glimpse of one click, so it just makes sense to do that. Yes, apart from that, I told you earlier that Reddit is nice, and that people post the same question again and again and again, and we will definitely see that in the future as well. Is because we're currently opting for a change of this dot. So when your Bitaxe sends over a share which is valid, it produces a dot on the display, no matter which current screen you're on. Let's say you're on the info screen, you get a dot. You're now on the IP screen, you get a dot. You're on the hash rate screen, you get a dot. You're on the Wi-Fi screen, you get a dot. So just so that you are notified about, hey, well, my device is working, so cool. Maybe we we do have this open issue of like, maybe we should change this to something like an upwards arrow or up sideways arrow, something like that. Need to think about that. We do have this open issue. Could make sense. A check mark. I mean, I was thinking the same. I do get why you think about that, because then you could technically put up a check mark for a valid share and an X for something that is rejected. Yeah, and a cross. I get that. But do we? I don't know. That's a good particular question that we should put up in there. It's the issue number 1123. So, Hex, why do you not propose this to this issue? Would be nice. As always, I want to make sure that you guys, especially in the audience, do get it, that you can always ask in any questions. I'm sort of running out of information that I want to share here with you, so if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. I encourage you. It's so hard to tell you all these things if they're not actually implemented. But a good thing is you can always take a look on GitHub. GitHub is so nice, easy, if you do get it, if you get used to it. If you are not used to GitHub, or if it's the first time for you using GitHub, yeah, prepare to be nerded, definitely. And prepare yourself to get one of these magic internet money stickers that you couldn't put on your MacBook or whatever you have, because you need them. Let me quickly grab a zip out of my Apfelschorle and then I'll be right back. All right, here we go. That's good. Currently in Germany, it's like, I don't know, 28, 30 degrees. I'm sweating in my office. I do have the balcony door open, wide open, and I'm still sweating here. It's really toasty. I don't like that. And especially having like 3 servers in my office, which is maybe like 15 square meters, and no AC is not helping. So, oh yeah, and I didn't mention that I do run 1GT and 15 Bitaxes, and oh my goodness. It's a little bit toasty in here. Probably my own fault, but anyway. So, let's see. What else do we have? I've noticed that a couple of people were telling me, or other people here on Discord, that the PID is not nice, especially on these cheaper Chinese fans. Or I'm not only blaming Chinese, but on some fans, the PID control is not really that nice. It's spinning up and down way too quick, and it's making it noisy. So what I'm opting for is trying to take a look on multiple other fans. I do know that PMax was improving his PID on the NerdX series a little bit, so maybe I peek a look around that as well to see if there are any particular improvements that I could copy over. But I think tweaking the PID control to make sure it's with some sort of hysteresis or like a smooth up and down is really hard, especially if you do have particular situations. Let's say your Bitaxe is running all day long at like 50 degrees, but out of a sudden it gets to 60 because the thermal paste is getting bad, or the day is just hot. Yeah, it's going to give you a hard time. And some of these fans are not really that great when it comes to particular fan speeds. Some of them will cool your ASIC or your heatsink down to like 50 degrees Celsius or 55 at 100% fan speed. But as soon as you do drop like one single degree, it's not really finding an RPM that is suitable for that, which is probably also, which is probably also an issue of the PID and how I wrote it in there. Yeah, just saying, I'll probably take a look on the PID control as well to make sure that this gets the most love that it can have. I don't know, like the easiest way for you would be just use a bigger heatsink and use a bigger fan. If you do have a gamma and you use these yellow small 40 by 40 by 10 millimeter heat sinks, and you run this on a gamma, stop doing that. This tiny heatsink is not meant to handle that kind of heat that your gamma can produce. The BM1370 chip is capable of producing up to 35-40 watts of heat, and if you do have such a tiny heatsink, that's not going to work very well. So you should get yourself a bigger heatsink, definitely. And while you're doing that, why not opt for something of these 60 by 60 millimeter fans? I've seen one of... We do have this 3D printing channel here. I'm not looking that often into that, I need to admit that, because my 3D printer is only running if I need something. Today was one of these days. I was printing a new case for the Nerd North, by the way. I need to make a couple of pictures for you on that as well. But yeah, you can just use adapters, and I think there are some on the 3D printing channel. So yeah, let's see. Fox is saying, yeah, he doesn't think there's much that can be done about these cheap fans ramping up and down. I don't think so either. I mean, that's the thing. I do have 3 Bitaxe Gamma and 1 Supra, so 4 in total, running with a Noctua fan. And of course, I do hear this ramping up and down slightly. It's not annoying. I do hear it a little bit, but then I do have 2 no-name fans next to it, and it's like all the time. It's so freaking annoying. Yeah, so it is these tiny 40 by 40 by 20 millimeter fans. If you have a by 10 millimeter fan, they're even more noisier. They are noisy. It is how they are, and they don't move that much heat. And Noctua fans are good when it comes to having something that is silent. But to be honest, if I would opt, I would use something like 60 by 60 or 80 by 80 millimeter fans. They're just bigger. They don't need to move that fast, and then they're just quieter, which is a good thing. I just bought some 12-volt Arctic fan with the fan controller, so it's either low, mid, or high speed. Yeah, that's also a good solution. Just remove the fan entirely off of your Bitaxe and have like a big ass fan next to it and some extra fan controller, and just run it like that. I mean, I've seen some guy on X probably who was posting his old S9 Antminer, and he had like 4 Bitaxe in there and a huge fan in front, like a 12-volt Noctua fan, and just ramping through it, but no other fan or heatsink, no other fans. Have you tried the 40 by 40 fans from a server rack? I have 2 of those for a project I have in mind. When you cannot stand next. Oh my god, I do have. I've built myself a new server a couple, maybe 2 months now. 2 months ago, and I do have some of these 80 by 80 millimeter server fans, and I do have one. I have one particular spot where there is a 40 by 40 millimeter fan sitting in for the NVMe controller to cool that one down. Dude, my goodness, that is loud. That's like that's a turbine. It's insane. Geoff is saying he added a Noctua fan to his Nerd QX++. It was a whole improvement by sound alone. Yeah, definitely. One thing that people probably don't get is there are trade-offs. Noctua is nice when it comes to having something that is silent and as good as possible at that silent level. But if you compare them price-wise to other fans, they're not moving that much air compared to other ones. So yeah, there are a couple of trade-offs. But, I mean, just use Amazon, try it out, and if you think it's shit, just send it back. Bad advertisement probably for the economy, but it is how it is. Developer Algo, hey man, good to see you in here, really, appreciate it. Use a Noctua fan with a heatsink that has a large surface area, preferably more than 2 copper tubes. Yeah, that's the thing, like, a couple days ago, I was doing a video about the 52 Pi Ice Tower, random names. I think that was designed for the Raspberry Pi to have like a big ass heatsink on it. But the 52 Pi's Ice Tower thingy, there's an adapter that you can 3D print and attach that to your Bitaxe as well. I was doing that. Insane. Love it. I mean, it's huge, but yeah, it's great. It's just great. I can't say anything bad about it. Same to a couple other heatsinks, the Bitch and Sink and so on. And Matt, you need to help me out. What's it called? The Black Horse? or the dark horse. I don't know. You do have this heatsink over at your place, and I tested that as well. It's working okay. I mean, I do have the bad spot that my office is directly under the roof. So today, dark horse, thank you. Today was a really sunny day. It was 30 degrees outside, and it's now 10 p.m. and it's still freaking hot in here. So it doesn't really matter which kind of heatsink I'm using. It's always hot in here. My trips are always running somewhere in the mid 60s. That's usual for my place. So I'm not a really good example of testing them. But I do imagine if you have like AC and stuff like that, your devices will do just great. I'd love to try and design a 40mm fan that can replace these Chinese junk ones. I mean, you don't need to. There are a couple of Chinese fans that are not that bad. There's this G-lid thingy. They are from an extent closer to Noctua than to other brands. So they try to be, in a way, silent. They're obviously not as silent as a Noctua fan, but they still try to move enough air. They did an okay job with that. So these G-lid thingies are okay, and they're from China as well, as if I'm not mistaken. It's very the G-lids are quiet, but also don't push much. Yeah, that's the thing. I tell you, like, there are trade-offs. If you have less noise, then you have less air, because air and air resistance and having blades crushing through the air, that's producing the sound and the noise. Let's see, developer is writing, if need your ASIC and VR temps to below 50C, use Noctua Fan NF-A6X25 with GeekPi Ice Low Profile Plus. My goodness, what are these names, dude? Just for good measurements, put some smaller copper heatsinks on top side of the VR next to the ESP32S. Yeah, definitely. I was playing with that as well. Like, I'm not changing what I said probably a year ago. I called these people sticking all over the place heatsink stupid for a particular reason, because I was seeing heatsinks put on the ESP32. I don't know why people are doing that. It's not happening. Like the ESP32, this silvery shield, if you attach a heatsink to that, it's not gonna change anything. I mean, good try, but place it on the opposite side of the V-rack, which is the TPS on the Bitaxe. If you want a particular spot, you could place the heatsink, but you need to have a tiny one, and please make sure to unplug your Bitaxe before you do that so you don't screw up anything. You could place a tiny heatsink between the power plug and the ESP32. There in the middle is the spot where you could attach one of these sticky heat sinks thingies to pull out a little bit of heat from this side from the PCB. On the opposite side of the PCB, so on the back, you could also put on a heatsink on the TPS directly, which is this rectangular looking little component on the back side. It is next to this huge component, the coil. So yeah, that's what I would recommend if you want to push down the numbers on the board. Obviously, that's going to help with a lot of things. Like, it's improving your efficiency because you don't need to draw that much power, because if you have more heat, then the resistance is higher, and then you need to draw more power to stay up on certain things. If you lower the heat, you only need a little bit less energy, and you can be more efficient, which is in both ways a good thing. So yeah, cooling it properly is always a nice thing. The best thing would be to live in the Arctic or the Antarctic and just having your Bitaxe running all day long in the snow out there. But well, I'm living a little bit far away from that. And I don't have a basement. I would love to have a basement, then I could just put in my miners there. But I do have a carport, and I'm planning on putting solar on it next week. Yeah, there's a video from not a video, a picture from Matt in the chat. Yeah, Matt, that's a good one. Like the second picture that you put in the chat, there you can see the heat sinks in the middle between the power plug connector and the ESP32. The thing why I said is be aware about unplugging your Bitaxe first before doing that is, like, if you hit with the heatsink on the right hand side the connector of the power cord, and on the left hand side you connect the heatsink with one of these silvery pennies on your ESP32, you could create a short, and you don't want to damage your device, so don't do that. Some of these ports only take up a certain voltage level, and if you connect anything higher to that, it will destroy parts on it. So don't do that. Better safe than sorry. Don't be stupid. Or at least, yeah, don't do it. And on the back, the first picture, there are two heatsinks attached. One is close to the ASIC and one is close to the input, which is good. What you could improve here is you could also put in one of these tinier heatsinks. There are some of these Raspberry Pi heatsinks with glue on one side, like all of these other heatsinks here are as well. You can put that directly on the TPS, this rectangular looking small thingy next to the coil. The device with like the white sticker on it, that is the coil, and the rectangular looking device or component on the top left of this coil, that is the buck converter, which is converting the 5 volts down to 1.2 volts so that your ASIC does work. And it can get toasty. I do have a device that I'm working on where we use one TPS to run 2 ASIC chips, and it's, if I'm not cooling it properly, it really easily goes up to 100 degrees Celsius. So yeah, you need to cool these things. And on the Bitaxe itself, you don't need to. If just run it with like default settings, your Bitaxe will be fine for a very long time, as long as the manufacturer used the components that we do provide in our schematics and everything else. Yeah, but if you want to use more powerful stuff, or if you want to overclock, I really do recommend of like getting a little bit more cooling. Yeah, 52 Pi does have a little great kit, that's for sure. And Matt just posted a picture of this kit in the chat. So there you do see smaller of these copper heatsinks. Man, I really need to get myself one of these kits. They look fantastic. And pure copper is always nice. I only have aluminium ones. Yeah, they're not that great. They do work, but yeah. With that, we're now taking an X course over to heating and how to use it. Today's session was more about how to, or what will improve in the upcoming things and what you can expect with the next release. I really thank everybody for being here in the audience, sticking to me and listening to the gibberish I was giving. So I really appreciate that. If you do have any last questions before we close this one up, I appreciate it. Apart from that, I really appreciate everybody for being in here and just giving a couple of questions out there. Yeah, next week I can hopefully finally clean off my whiteboard. I have 25 pull requests and issues on that one, as well as some of my thoughts. It looks funny, but I need to clean that. All right. Okay, Decentralized Mind has a question. Go for it, please. Type quick. I'm taking a moment here to smoke a little bit. Can we get the chart like the nerd? You mean like, can we have statistics over time? I mean, it doesn't matter when we open it, but can we see the daily average? Oh, I see. I mean, currently, yeah, okay. I mean, we do have the option that you can set up a average or a statistic saver thing where you can go to the settings and then you do see historical data of your Bitaxe device, so that you do know how was it doing like 10 minutes before I was staring at it for 24 hours. But yeah, we don't have a daily average, I think. So sure, technically we could add that. Not a big deal. It is kinda, because a lot of things to do there. D-Varloch support for putting something into InfluxDB. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't want to say no. I want to explain why or how we try to make this happen. Because sure, we want to make this happen, but it's not going to be the same as on the NerdX series, where you can just type in your InfluxDB in there and it's sent over this data. What we want to create is this tool hash command, which should then do that for you. We don't want to put too much commands and settings and thingies on the Bitaxe. We want to keep it a little bit bare bone to just mining, and this tool that we're working on called hash command, that will be there to handle all of these things, like controlling multiple Bitaxes at once, updating them in a bulk and stuff like that. That's gonna happen with the hash command, but that's for the future. So yeah. How many of the BM1370s will the ESP32 support? So the ESP32, I don't know, but particularly the ESP32S3 could easily handle, let's say, up to 60 chips, something like that. Yeah, should be possible. So if you take one of these Antminer S21 hash boards with the BM1370 chips, you could technically control one entire hash board off of that, which is, I think, currently 56 ASICs on one hash board. It could be off by a couple of 64, yeah. Okay, so you could control that entire hash board with it, technically. Obviously with ESP miner, it's currently not possible, but yeah, it could work. You need to rewrite a couple of things. But just doing a little bit of math in my head, like from the serial baud rate and what we do have available, it should be possible with an ESP32S3. Yeah, I mean, it needs to be done. So maybe maybe someday in the future we do have a control board with an ESP32. But what we do have is a control board with a Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4, which could technically run up to how many boards you want to attach to it. Because Raspberry Pi 4 is way more capable than an ESP32S3, because it's ARM-based, it's bigger, and so on. Yeah, I think with that, that's a fantastic closing here. We're sitting at 1 hour and 3 minutes currently, so I will wrap up this session. I thank everybody for tuning in here, and I say we see us back again in 2 weeks. Till then, I do hope you guys keep hashing, and I do too see you back again in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and till then, see you next time. I'm Ron Clue. Peace out.